Game Boy was coming. I knew Game Boy was coming out. We'd heard this long before in 88. And so I got on a plane in January, and I went to Nintendo of America and met with Mr. Arakawa. And I said, Mr. Arakawa, what's your plan for Game Boy? I know you always have a policy to include a game with a new hardware. So what's your plan? And he said, well, I'm going to include Mario. And I said, well, I got a better game. It's Tetris. And he already knew about Tetris because people were playing it. I said, if you want little boys to buy your Game Boy, include Mario. If you want everyone to buy your Game Boy, include Tetris. And then you could always, afterwards still sell Mario and make the money off Mario. So he called in, I think it was Ken Lobb. He called in his experts, and they all said, yeah, do that.
Hats off to Mr. A and the rest of the team and Nintendo, recognizing that this was transformative and a critical product to pack in because it was the perfect product to launch it with.
We made a deal. I shook hands on that. I didn't have the rights. I said, I'm going to go to the Soviet Union and get those rights. The new Nintendo, one of the new buildings. I think they have 2 new buildings. Okay, the first building you see should be the building where they manufacture the Nintendo unit. Well, we have an appointment with Mr. Arakawa in 5 minutes, so actually we're a little bit early. Let me introduce you to Mr. Ota. This is Mr. Ota from Nintendo of America. He's probably the most important Japanese person in America next to Mr. Arakawa.
That's not true.
This is a sample of the way Nintendo merchandises products. This is Nintendo of America's customer support section. The first 2 rows down there answer letters and write stories for the magazines. Panning over here, we see people answering the phones, answering questions about the Nintendo machines. How many of them are there?
There are, probably right around 150 to 200 people. We're open from 4 a.m. until 10 p.m. So
4 a.m. till 10 p.m.? Oh my gosh. Okay, and scanning around here, we get into the games counselors. How many game counselors are there?
Right around 82, and the number's growing.
82, and these are people who answer questions about games and
how to play games.
Okay, so altogether on from that section down to here is all customer support.
All the way down here is all customer support.
Well, maybe in a couple of years this will be BPS. Mm-hmm. Robert Stein, he was the closest to Moscow, and we were communicating by fax for the handheld rights. He kept on putting me off, and he sends me a fax. He says, I'm going to go to this whatever trade show in Germany, then I'm going to Moscow, I'll be there for a week, there for a week, then I want you to come. Why? Why do I have to come a week after you go to Moscow? What's going on? That was February of 1989. Then at that time, I got a call from Arakawa. I said, somebody, and that was Gilman Louie, had come to me and said that they could give me the Game Boy rights to Tetris. All the alarms were going off. There was, somebody else is dealing Tetris somewhere. I got to get on that plane. So I said, Mr. Arakawa, Gilman is the one who came to Japan and said he could give me the rights. And turned out he didn't have the rights. So I'm about to get on a plane and go to Moscow and get these rights for you. Give me a chance to finish my job. He said, okay. With a tourist visa, 2 days later, I got on a plane, went to Moscow. I get on a plane with a tourist visa, not knowing anybody or anything.
There she is. The St. Basil.
I had a video camera because I had no confidence that I would be able to describe what happened to me in Moscow. And so I was recording everything.
Okay, this is the hotel from the outside, the Interest Hotel. Actually, it looks wonderful from the outside. This is my room in the Interest Hotel. Oh, look, there's even a mirror. There's a TV. This TV, I tried to plug it in last night, and sparks started coming out of the machine. This is Moscow. It looks pretty gray. That's because it's pretty gray. Well, today I'm going to go out, see what I can find out.
All I have is the game with the copyright notice, and the copyright notice says Tengen to Mirosov, from Mirosov to Andromeda, from Andromeda to Elorg. I had a bitch of a time finding Elorg.
I've spent about 3 hours trying to locate Elorg.
Watching video of Hawaii because the TV doesn't work, the radio doesn't work. I've read everything I could read. I'm waiting for phone call from Japan. They're going to tell me where the Moscow Book Club is, because I'm sure I won't be able to find out by asking people here.
My strategy was I was going to find a Go player in the Soviet Union. So I had gotten the address of the Russian Go Association. They made some phone calls for me, set up a Go game. And so the next morning, I had a chance to play Go with the third strongest Go player in the Soviet Union. He was also a 6th dan, just like Mr. Yamauchi. And like my father, he's also a 6th dan.
I got smart this time, and I hired a car.
The next day, we hired a limousine.
Driver in the mirror. I wonder if we can. Maybe it's too dark to see. So, what's your name?
Как зовут?
My name is
Victor.
Victor. I see. Okay.
I get back to my hotel, and in the hallway of the hotel, all of a sudden I see an interpreter. And it's like, interpreter's like, oh my gosh, of course, I should hire an interpreter.
To the left, you can't see us. It's
Skating
there is
rink.
one of the biggest swimming pools in Moscow.
But it's not a swimming pool now, I'll bet. It's a skating rink or something?
No, it's swimming pool. It's open all the year round.
And people swim there now?
Yes.
Wow. So I have a very lovely interpreter. And her name is...
My name is Allah.
Your name is Allah.
And so I said to him, Allah, can you help me find Elorg? And she looked at it and said, oh yeah, I know where Elorg is. She knew that right away. And I said, that made me suspicious. It's like she already knew what I was looking for. In other words, the word had gotten around, this guy snooping around for Elorg, which I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm not supposed to be meeting any Russians. I'm only supposed to be there taking pictures of tourist attractions. That's it.
Really something.
First, we went to the Go Club. The place where people play Go is inside of this big building where the Olympic Committee was.
Whoa! What's this? Olympiada? Olympisk. That's where they have the chess club. They take their sports very seriously. We're going right into it. I'm impressed. I am impressed.
I won that game. Problem with the Go player is he didn't speak a word of English. So he was absolutely useless. I couldn't get anything out of him, but I had the interpreters, it's fine. So then we went to a LORG.
Okay, we're on the street here, where we just passed by the American Embassy. And that building there is a LORG.
And I remember going up to the door of a LORG, this interpreter, she goes, no, you can't go in there. And I said, what do you mean I can't go in there? I said, you're here on a tourist visa. It's like, how do you even know that, you know? And I said, I didn't come all this way to stand in front of a door and then go back to Japan and get a visa so that I can go through this door. I'm going through this door. Are you coming with me? And she said, no, I can't go with you. I said, okay, I'm going in. You wait here. So I just stood there in the lobby waiting for somebody to talk to me. Mr. Belikov comes down the stairs, and I had my game. I said, I'm the publisher of this game in Japan, Tetris, and I'm looking for the rights to Tetris for handheld. And he looks at it, and he says, what machine is this for? And I said, it's for Nintendo. It's a console. And he says, we never licensed Tetris for console to anyone. I'm like, holy crap. If somebody else picked up those rights, they could stop me from publishing, and my in-laws would lose all of their land. So I was in some seriously deep kimchi at that moment. I decided, you know what? I'm going to focus on the mission that I'm here, and I'll deal with this later. So I said, I would like to come back tomorrow, and I'm here for the handheld rights. The reason I said the next day is because I wanted to make sure that they could get the right people in the room. So he said, okay, come back tomorrow. I'll meet you at 1 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. That was my official invitation right there. The next day I went back, I get escorted into this room. On one end of the long table, there are 8 people, something like that, sitting on the other side. I'm sitting by myself on this side, and we're about to start the 3rd degree. And all these guys are suspicious. Like, who the hell are you? How did you, because I came out of nowhere. I wasn't supposed to be there.
You looked really suspicious. From Japan, with perfect English. I mean, something really wrong.
Yeah, so I'm a Dutchman living in Japan who talks like an American. And by the way, my English is very simple English because I've been living in Japan for many years and I know how to speak English as a second language. So all these people are able to understand me. Anyway, there's like a lot of negative vibes coming from the other side of the table. And I could see his demeanor change as the conversation went on when he realized that I was a game designer. As I was explaining what my involvement was, I could see him visibly warm up. And I mean, the others, a couple of guys in there, I don't know, the KGB or whatever they,
Well, they are all, frankly, KGB, but they are not kind of field agents, so per se. Mostly they sell weapons, I believe. To the other country. They have specialty in making contracts and follow the money and...
I can tell you this, nobody on the other side of the table except Alexei knew anything about computer games.
Oh, about computer games, no, but about the international trade, they probably...
They knew something. Well, if they did, they got totally spanked by Stein in that contract.
I don't think Robert Stein, he intended to misrepresent anything. You know, he was like a sole entrepreneur who's out there trying to make a buck by licensing products.
Stein shows up, which I knew he was going to be there. I just didn't know where or how. But what I didn't know was Kevin Maxwell also showed up.
They never meet each other, but Kevin Maxwell, Stein, and Hank was at the same time in Ilorg, so I met them all.
So now there were 3 people in Moscow at the same time trying to get the Game Boy rights.
We were supposed to have all rights, not just PC and Mac, but it kind of came out that I'm not sure Stein had all the rights that he needed with this Elord programmer.
We found out that Stein started selling the other platform, which we never considered him to have. We were furious when we heard about this.
The deal that had been made was between Elorg and Robert Stein, which is Andromeda, for the computer. By the time this deal gets to Microsoft, they read the contract that says, the computer. Oh, that's everything. We got everything.
Up until that point, I thought we had all the rights, right? Because Stein represented that as such.
Stein had licensed arcade rights to Tengen, because they were an arcade company, and to Sega. And he didn't have those rights. And so the Russians say, yeah, you need to clean that up before we even talk to you about anything else.
He came and started crying and saying that he can't afford anything without this platform and that. We say, no, we don't want to even discuss it with you.
They came to me and they say, Stein is here. He's looking to figure out the arcade rights. What should we do? Rather than asking for a per unit or something complicated that you can't check, ask him for a big upfront money. And so that is the deal that actually ended up happening between Stein. That's how Tengen and Sega got the arcade rights.
I don't think Stein was being evil. I just don't think the communications, the faxing back and forth, the definition of what a computer and a console, all that was kind of blurred at that particular time. Maybe he overrepresented what he had, but he wasn't a lawyer. You know, he wasn't a contracts guy. He was trying to do his best to do one of his short deals, but, you know, he didn't have a big name Silicon Valley law firm behind him.
Stein wasn't publisher, he was an agent. All he's do is sub-license.
So Robert Stein came to Moscow and said, look, we're publishing this. You can either cooperate or you can try and sue Microsoft or whatever. And that's, of course, an impossible thing. There's no way that the Russian government is going to sue somebody outside the Soviet Union over intellectual property.
All this is brewing in one big stew. You had the Soviets and the Russians. You had the murkiness of the contract and the technical meanings of what was licensed and what wasn't licensed. You had Hank in Russia. You had Microsoft through Robert Maxwell, who was bigger than life character, kind of the Rupert Murdoch competitor of his era, who had strong relationships with the Kremlin. So he was trying to call in over the top, right, by engaging very senior levels of government to force the license to fall in favor of Atari and Microsoft.
Nobody on the other side of the table had any idea how big the game business was. They were taking the Russians to the cleaners. They were getting a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a percentage. Just imagine this. Spectrum Holobyte has a quarter where they sell $100,000 worth and they pay $20,000 to Microsoft. That becomes income on the second quarter, $20,000. And from that $20,000, they pay Stein 20%, which is $4,000 in the next quarter. And then Stein reports that in the fourth quarter. So by the time the fourth quarter comes around, it's 20% of $4,000 at $800, out of this huge chain of money. So I said, look, the way I'm going to do this deal is you guys should not care how many sub-licensees. You are going to get a fixed amount of money from each unit that is sold. So I will pay you 25 cents per unit for Game Boy. No matter who sells it in the world, you will get 25 cents.
My dad was an honest guy. He could really say, I'm not the richest guy, but I will show you exactly how much money I'm making. Here's an honest deal. Whereas before, they weren't getting an honest deal, obviously.
They asked me, so how many copies do you think you're going to sell? And I was thinking, you know, if we're talking about packing it in with Game Boy, maybe 30 million copies.
No, come on, you was very moderate with your expectations.
Okay,
10
all right.
million, maybe 5 million, 10 million.
Oh, okay, say it's 10 million. 10 million times a quarter, that's $2.5 million. That is
Right
significantly more than they were ever going to make with all the deals that they had done up to the...
Totally other area, you know, of revenue.
They asked me, when are you coming back to Moscow? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, we need time to think this over. And I said, I either leave Moscow with the rights to handheld Tetris, or I don't. I leave without it. I'm not coming back. We don't have that kind of time. I made this very official thing, boom, and this, you have 1 week to answer me with...
Letter of intent or something.
yeah, with a proposal, you know. And after that, this offer is null and void. I mean, good morning. It looks like it's snowing. I was at Mr. Pachinov's house yesterday until 2 o'clock in the morning. Had a very interesting conversation about game design, and he showed me many new games. I'm sure we can have very fruitful relationship. I'm on my way now to 10 o'clock appointment with Elodie about obtaining the rights to handheld Tetris. We shall see. In that meeting, we hammered out the basics of what a deal would look like. And I said, I'll get you a contract. It took 8 hours to make a phone call out of the Soviet Union to anywhere. I make the phone call to my lawyer in Tokyo. I do it before I go to sleep so that if they call me during the night, then I'll be there. And I wake up in the morning. Sure enough, it takes about 8 hours. I said, okay, I need a contract. I have to explain every word, so it can't have any big words. It can't be more than 20 pages because I have a limited amount of time to explain this. It has to be a fair contract because I'm not going to have time to go back and forth. This contract has to work the very first time. And it has to satisfy Nintendo that we actually have the rights to Tetris. And you have 24 hours to create this contract, and here's the fax number. So 24 hours later, this contract appears. To them, they'd never seen a contract that was that fair.
Hank is a very good partner. We decide that we want him.
And by the way, since then I found out they used that contract as the basis for all their contracts after that.
Including myself, I use this contract a lot.
So yeah, we signed a contract.
For handheld?
For handheld, on Friday. Then they asked me, would you like to do another contract for console? And I said, sorry, but I can't. The company I licensed from, they're a big litigious company. I had read the Atari contract, and my lawyer said that there's a clause in there that says if we don't have the right, you have to help us get it. How the hell did that get into the contract? It's like, oh my God, this is litigation. I have to go back and figure out whether I can do this or not. after the meeting, Alexei came to me and he asked me to meet that evening. Did everybody know that?
No.
At your hotel at 6 o'clock or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Meet me at the front door because I can't go into your hotel being a Soviet citizen unaccompanied. It felt a little clandestine, you know.
You want to show me something important.
I had brought with me a Sharp Famicom, and I had a little portable videotape player, tiny videotape, and it had a screen that had a RCA in. I wanted to show him Tetris on Nintendo. He'd never seen it.
Yeah. I tried to play. I was completely disappointed because it was a wrong hand. I play with my right hand and drop with my left hand, but with the joypad.
Joypad.
Yeah, it was different kind of disappointment, which I politely hide. but anyway. And probably the same day, maybe next day, we went to my apartment because I was desperate to show him my other games. He was the first professional game designer I ever see in my life. So basically, it was important to at least hear his opinion. Maybe he would be interested in publishing something or whatever, but what is important, I don't know. I am out of this world. So that's why I take some kind of risk to inviting him.
Saturday and Sunday, basically, we had no meetings. You took me on a tour.
Today is a wonderful day. We have done most of our business. Today we are sightseeing with Mr. Pajitnov.
This building like a false teeth.
We are just about arriving at the Red Square.
Yes.
Or I should say the Kremlin. It's supposed to be 9 churches in one. This is Mr. Alexei Pajitnov. He is the author of Tetris.
Play Tetris.
Play Tetris.
My friends.
Okay. That's it. Bye-bye.
So, you have to see my barb. I'm Russian people.
Beard. Beard.
Barb is in French.
I see. This is Arbat Street. There's a lot of free activity going on here, like music and poetry being read and art being shown. And here's the artist, and she's. Hi. Just watched a very nice little book from Arbat at Arbat Street.
And the next day he invite me to Japanese restaurant. I had no idea what Japanese people eat, and then I found out that I put in situation when I need to use wooden stick instead of forks, and moreover I need to eat the fresh uncooked fish, which kind of absolutely unthinkable thing for Russians. Fish is something you, for sanitary reason, you need to cook, overcook, and overcook again, you know. But he kind of showed me how to handle those chopsticks, and then he showed me that this green stuff is really hot kind of spice,
wasabi,
which could help me to swallow this uncooked fish and whatever. So basically, I managed to be okay.
You managed to be okay.
Yeah.
Guess what his favorite food is now? Sushi. You know, a little taste of Japan.
And strange restaurant, very fancy, but they don't manage to cook the fish, the most cookable kind of food out of anything else, you know.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
That was another quite an experience for me, yeah. Besides Nintendo machine, which is upside down device. Japan is another planet, with another lifestyle, with another human behavior, weather, buildings, everything. You are really on the other planet there. Entire visit in Kyoto was kind of important for me. The second day, it was a short visit with Mr. Yamauchi. He was a normal kind of serious businessman, very polite, very kind and we did have a good conversation. He started with apologizing that was a small kind of bug in the Game Boy Tetris, something with the probability of the pieces. We discussed how we fix it and decided to fix it, and then he gifted me with the electronic organizer. Absolutely stupid device of this time, but it was very fashionable. Complicated calculator with the small screen which you could put schedule, and it's something which died maybe 4 months after that. but I still keep this this strange device somewhere in my closet. It was about maybe 30, maybe 40 minutes, kind of. And everybody was impressed about this meeting, and I still don't understand why. But what I was really impressed is to visit their warehouse. Huge building, 3-story building, 700 yards long, filled up with Tetrises. If you could imagine your creation in this amount, you won't sleep the next night for sure. That's how I remember Kyoto for myself.
The console versions were never quite as good as the Game Boy version.
I think Game Boy Tetris for me was like the game that I played the most. I think it was such a game changer, right? Because we're already playing the Famicom, like NES type games at home, but then now you can take that everywhere. I remember like going to Disneyland or going on trips, and we would have the Game Boy, we would link it up and play together.
Game Boy looks for me like a device for Tetris, by default. With the small screen, with the good resolution. Buttons work well, music was excellent. I did play Mario on it, but Tetris is much better on the Game Boy, at least for my opinion.
People think the Game Boy version was probably the perfect game.
And I do remember that once it was a Tetris competition, and some schoolboy came to me to sign the cartridge. I signed, and he is glued into the Game Boy. I was very impressed with this. So for me, Tetris is really literally glued in the Game Boy. So if you remember Game Boy, you can't forget Tetris. Historically, they are together.
The heart level, if you push the certain combination when you're booting up the game, it goes to the heart levels. And the heart levels are way faster than any other level. It's so fast that if your piece drops, you cannot reach the side higher than 4 off the bottom. So that's how fast it's going. So if you want to do a Tetris, you need to make the hole in the middle and hope that the long piece comes.
Oh, shoot.
I saw so many versions on home computers and other devices. So for me as a designer, it wasn't anything really exceptional. But it was a really decent, very good version. Probably that was the best version if to not take in account my own computer version, which was much better for me, of course, you know, because I made it. Yeah.
Tengen was going to make cartridges without paying Nintendo. They had reverse engineered the Nintendo cartridge. The Nintendo cartridge had a patented lockout system, a copyrighted song, which is a piece of code that all of the data would be passed through, and then they had the trademark, the word Nintendo, on the cartridge. Tengen had managed to get through all those three.
Did you reverse engineer the code? Did you do it properly? Because depending on how you figured out how to jailbreak the machine, there were ways that if you did it through a black box, you can go off and do it. And if you didn't, you couldn't do it.
Nintendo was in court with them. That was going to take time. By that time, Tengen's first game would have come out already. What was their first game? Tetris.
You're going to give us a copy, yes?
Tengen about Tetris. Yeah, it's like a big It's like a Tetris. I like a big new idea.
But apparently, Tengen, in the creation of their version of Tetris, actually used some of the Nintendo code, which violated the rules of the blacklist.
So if they could stop Tetris, that would put Tengen back a long time. So I go back to Japan. I call Arakawa. I said, this is and this and this is what's happening. He said, get us the right to Tetris. What happens when Atari Games sues me? We will protect you. Like, okay. So I found myself a month later. I'm back in the Soviet Union. I said, yeah, I'm ready to do a deal for the console rights. And do you need me to bring the president of Nintendo? And they said, yes. And they came on a clandestine mission. Everybody at Nintendo of America thought they were in Japan, but they actually flew to London and from London to Moscow. We went through a week of negotiation. So I ended up getting Nintendo the rights to console worldwide, and then they licensed back to me in Japan. So my in-laws' property stayed intact.
everybody want to do 3D Tetris. And it was a version of 3D Tetris called Blockout. And I really hate it.
Ow, 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 ow! Hank Rogers plays Blockout. First time try to play.
I realized that immediately that it's too much pressure for human mind to deal with this strange mainframe kind of shape of the pieces and whatever. It was possible to play for maybe 5-10 minutes, but then you kind of get away.
This is Andrei Sneger, the main programmer in Docker company.
Made this first well-dressed prototype.
One of my friends do a very good prototype. I don't even remember what the game was about, but he kind of have a very good design of this well, kind of three walls on the bottom. So I decided that for Tetris it would be very interesting to try.
Make each Tetris screen be a side of a wall and have the pieces fall, and you can go around the side of the wall.
Shape of the field delivered a really strong feeling of 3D, but it doesn't spoil the game with the overloading mind. That was very important. Very interesting kind of phenomena happened with the piece. At the bottom, on the edge, partially on one and partially on the other, it kind of splits on the bottom.
It was addictive. It was a natural sequel. Weltris won an award at SBA the following year after Tetris.
And Blockout wasn't there. I do remember that one of my first very original game, I called it Crowd. Later it was published under the name of Muddled Casino in Microsoft Entertainment Pack.
Your task is to put them away from the field from this small window. In this order, this will be first, but
you have this crowd and you call them either to left, either to right, either up, either down, but every time the different subsets going on. You muddle them and you miss them a lot while you operate with them.
And now put the circle up. Enough? But now I want to separate that guy and bring him down. Oops, that's not a good idea, I bet. It took intense concentration to avoid getting stuck. I could see this game was geometry, logic, and strategy all rolled into one. You made it! Okay, I got it.
You see, this game is rich enough. I don't know.
Sure
I like
can
it very much, but maybe it's a little bit complicated.
Right now, I understand why you call it muddle, because my mind's kind of a muddle right now.
That was my very first, very original game which I produced. For me personally, the best kind of pleasure is the pleasure of intellectual activity. So this kind of pleasure I would like to present to my customer, to my players. I did a game called Swap and Drop. The fragment of the pieces, which kind of in pair goes down, and you could swap them and shift together. That's how it worked. And we did two different games out of it. Tetris with the heads those heads going this way, and you need to collect the pile of 5 heads, and they have different property. I like Tetris very well, and hand published it for Nintendo, but for Nintendo it didn't, for Famicom it didn't work very well. Don't remember very big sales on it. Some team did it with the faces. Spectrum Holobyte published this game.
The swap and drop framework was a good framework, so it didn't take us much energy to figure out how to tweak it so that it was right. Pieces would come down, and you have to make sure a face is stacked in the right order. So you have the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and the hat or the hair.
And if you don't do the face and have kind of 4 eyes, for example, that's a failure.
You get bonus points if you complete the face that is the intended face versus a random face, different slices of different people's faces. Very simple concept. Also move progressively faster and faster. We knew that players were trying to optimize to get the perfect face. That ultimately worked against you. Because if you were getting the perfect face, you were creating new problems over here on the other sides of the stack. And that's part of the kind of the game mechanic for that particular game.
I didn't like it very well, this faces idea. It didn't fit my feeling that we could play with human faces this way. But they were very fascinated to put Gorbachev with Thatcher eyes and Gorbachev kind of bold stuff and whatever. Wasn't very successful, but probably broke even.